and thank you, Madam Secretary, for being here. The Bureau of Industry and Security is the Commerce Department bureau that enforces export controls, correct?
Yes.
All right. According to the guiding principles found on its website, the Bureau of Industry and Security should ensure that the regulations it promulgates does not, and I quote, impose unreasonable restrictions on legitimate international commercial activity, end quote. The Bureau's guiding principles also state that they should avoid regulatory actions that, and I quote, compromise the international competitiveness of U.S. industry. Now, you're asking for a budget increase for the Bureau of Industry and Security, $32.4 million, and also the International Trade Administration, whose responsibility it is to strengthen international competitiveness of U.S. industry, promoting trade and investment. You're asking for $34.5 million for them as well, both increases totaling over $60 million. And yet, the Bureau of Industry and Security finalized its interim final rule on April 30th of this year that permanently extends the current pause on firearm export licenses, violating both the previously outlined Bureau guidelines by severely restricting American firearm, ammunition, and other component manufacturers from acquiring the necessary licenses to export their products for sale. Under this interim final rule, the duration of firearm export licenses will be reduced from 4 years to 1, with approvals now occurring on a case-by-case basis. Following implementation of this rule, approximately 2,000 active firearm export licenses that were previously approved will be automatically revoked, compelling the affected companies to submit new applications for export licenses. So much for the Paperwork Reduction Act. In fact, the National Shooting Sports Foundation estimates that this could have an adverse economic impact of greater than $250 million for the United States firearms industry, severely hurting the countless firearms industry manufacturers, suppliers, and jobs that are supported across the country. Chairman, I request unanimous consent to submit to the record this firearm and ammunition industry economic impact report by the National Shooting Sports Foundation. Thank you. You know, this rule will cause massive confusion in the market. It will terminate current business. It will damage the goodwill of the brands of firearm manufacturers, and it eliminates future business. So, Madam Secretary, $250 million is a huge amount. Would you consider that an adverse economic impact? And would you consider that as compromising the competitiveness of the U.S. industry abroad?
Thank you for the question. I will say this. National security has to come before commerce. It's one of the hardest parts of my job. I tell semiconductor companies that they can't sell their chips to China. It denies them revenue. But first and foremost, it's national security. I want to say I hear you, and I appreciate your concerns, but the reality is this is a very narrowly targeted change to tighten up our license requirements. It's based upon good data we have around diversion. Guns go one place but wind up in the hands of criminals or drug traffickers or terrorists. And we're denying or making it very hard to sell guns to 36 countries that have unrest, huge drug cartels. It is not in America's national security interests to export guns that wind up in the hands of criminals that could destabilize those countries or, quite frankly, our own country. I will tell you, every one of those people that had their license revoked can reapply, but it's going to be under stricter scrutiny in light of the evidence we have around diversion.
Well, ma'am, I mean, these are vetted countries. You know, obviously, these licenses were approved in the past, okay? I mean, this is going to cost the United States firearms industry a tremendous amount of money. So, was there any communication with the White House regarding this rule?
Probably, but, you know, no decisions we make have any, if you're insinuating was there any political element to this, absolutely not. We have data from the GAO and other places that say, you know, when law enforcement agencies confiscate guns in these 36 countries in connection with crimes, drug crimes, cartels, terrorists, they're guns that have been diverted. They were sold to a legitimate commercial user and diverted. And that's against American national security, and that's why we took these steps. By the way, as proof that these are narrowly targeted, as everything we do in BIS, the restrictions will affect less than 10% of all gun exports. So I don't agree with you that I agree, I admit it is some commerce, but I think national security comes first. And I don't agree that it's large swaths of commerce. These are narrowly tailored to meet the national security mission.
Ma'am, a $250 million economic impact is not narrowly tailored. I certainly cannot possibly support this increase in funding when BIS comes out with this particular type of a rule, and I yield back. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madam Secretary, do you think the number of illegal aliens that were counted in the 2020 census had an impact on the apportionment of the House of Representatives that we have today?
I don't think so. But I don't
think so.
I don't have a great answer for you.
Okay. Can you get me a great answer?
What do you think?
I think it did. I think it really did. At a significant, I mean, if we're looking at over 20 million illegals in this country, then I think that it had a significant impact.
Yeah, my job though isn't.
Well, let me.
Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
You mentioned that the census is counting the whole number of persons in each state. I agree with you. It's what the 14th Amendment says. But it also says in Section 2 of the 14th Amendment, when it talks about representatives in Congress, it says the basis of representation therein shall be reduced in the portion which the number of such male citizens shall bear to the whole number of male citizens 21 years of age in such state. Now, I know the 19th Amendment added both male and female, made it both male and female, and the 26th Amendment lowered the age to 18. But the 14th Amendment still says male citizens is the basis of, says citizenship is the basis of representation. And I'm grateful to take a clarifying action this week to prevent the marginalizing of citizens' voting power by finally requiring a citizenship question on the decennial census, and by modifying the House of Representatives apportionment to be based only on United States citizens. I look forward to voting for H.R. 7109, the Equal Representation Act, of which I am a proud original co-sponsor. Now, can you tell me a little bit about the Census Bureau's annual business survey? What is the cost of that annual business survey, and why did it go from 5-year in 2017 to 1 year?
I could probably get you the cost, but I'll have to get back to you on the exact cost.
Okay,
That's
fine.
I do want to say something to your last question. The census's job is to identify persons living in this country. And I know from experience, I lived it, when you start to ask people about their immigration status, they then don't answer the door and won't be counted, and it will lead to inaccurate data.
Ma'am, I appreciate that, but I'm moving on to the Census Bureau's annual business survey. So my next question to you is, how much money is spent on follow-up with those businesses that do not initially respond to the Census Bureau's annual business survey? Do you have that?
I don't, but I can get it to you. But
Okay.
a great deal of money. I mean, we try to get everyone to respond.
Okay, and how do you determine who you ask?
You'd have to ask the scientists. To be clear, I don't interfere with any of this. This is statisticians figure out what's likely to lead to the best outcomes, and I
Okay.
defer to their judgment.
Okay, so then I can be assured that you'll get me that information.
100%.
Okay,